You are standing in your garage right now looking at your furnace. You have been feeding it every winter for decades. Natural gas bills in January that hit $200, $300, sometimes $400. You accept it the same way you accept winter itself. It is just the cost of staying warm. But what if I told you that in 1949, the average American household heated an entire winter for less than $12? Not adjusted for inflation, 12 actual dollars. And the method they used is still sitting in patent records, still physically possible, still perfectly legal to build in your own home this weekend. The only thing that changed between 1949 and now is that an industry worth $722 billion per year made absolutely certain you would never hear about it again. Here is what you are about to learn. The specific heating method that powered American homes before the natural gas industry convinced the federal government to rewrite building codes in their favor. The exact date that switch happened, the companies that lobbied for it, and the congressional testimony that proves it was never about safety. It was about subscriptions. And at the end of this video, I am going to show you the one upgrade you can make this weekend, no permits, no contractors, that cuts your winter fuel bill by 60 to 70% using a technology that has been in continuous use in Scandinavia since the 1700s. It is not solar, it is not geothermal. It is something your great-grandfather would recognize immediately, and something your utility company is praying you never build. Let me take you back to Holmes County, Ohio, 2019. A man named Daniel Kurtz, age 64, Amish community, published his heating costs for the year in a local homesteading journal. Total annual expense for a 2,200 square foot home in a climate that sees January lows in the teens, $41. Not $41 per month, $41 for the entire year. He was not living in a tent. He was not freezing. His home maintained 68 degrees all winter using a masonry heater system his grandfather built in 1958 and that still functions today without a single repair. The fuel source was deadfall wood from his property. No monthly bills, no utility dependency, no furnace replacement every 15 years. I want you to sit with that number for a second. $41. Now pull up your natural gas bill from last January and do the math. Here's what happened. Between 1935 and 1952, the natural gas industry in America went through the largest infrastructure build-out in industrial history. Pipelines were laid from Texas to New York. Distribution systems were installed in every major city. Billions of dollars were invested. But there was a problem. American homes were not designed to need natural gas. Most rural homes used masonry heaters or wood stoves. Urban homes used coal or oil, systems that homeowners controlled entirely. The natural gas companies had built a $700 billion infrastructure with no guaranteed customers. They needed dependency, not preference. So they went to the federal government. In 1954, the National Fire Protection Association, heavily funded by gas utility lobbies, began publishing new building codes that specifically restricted masonry heater installation in new residential construction. The stated reason was safety. The real reason appears in congressional lobbying records from 1952 to 1956. Natural gas companies argued that America needed standardized heating to support national energy security. Translation: they needed every new home built to require a monthly gas bill, whether the homeowner wanted one or not. By 1960, masonry heaters were effectively illegal in most new construction across the United States. Not because they were dangerous, because they did not generate recurring revenue. The financial logic is clean. A masonry heater costs between $4,000 and $7,000 to install. Once built, it lasts 80 to 120 years with zero maintenance. Fuel cost, if you source your own wood or buy locally, runs $20 to $60 per year, depending on your climate. A natural gas furnace costs $3,000 to $5,000 to install. It lasts 12 to 18 years before requiring replacement, and it generates a monthly bill that averages $147 nationwide year-round when you include summer baseline fees. Over a 30-year period, the masonry heater cost roughly $6,000 total. The gas furnace cost $64,000. The difference is $58,000 per household. Multiply that by 123 million households in America, and you are looking at $7 trillion in consumer spending that would disappear if masonry heating became standard again. That is why it was suppressed. That is why your grandfather stopped building them. That is why you have never seen one outside of a historical museum. Now, if you're thinking this only works if you're building a new house from scratch, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You already own your home. You already have a furnace. You are not tearing out walls or applying for permits. But there is one retrofit technique that works in existing homes, requires no structural modification, and drops fuel consumption by 60 to 70% within the first heating season. It is called a thermal battery backup system, and it has been standard in Finland and Norway since the 1980s. Here's how it works. A thermal battery is a masonry mass, usually soapstone or fire brick, that you heat once per day using a small, high-efficiency wood stove. The mass absorbs the heat and radiates it slowly over the next 18 to 24 hours. You are not heating air. You are storing heat in matter. The result is that instead of running your furnace continuously to maintain temperature, you run it maybe 2 or 3 times per week during cold snaps, and the rest of the time, the thermal mass carries the load. The system costs between $800 and $1,500 if you buy the materials yourself and assemble it over a weekend. No contractor, no permit in most jurisdictions because it is a freestanding stove installation, not a built-in heating system. Penn State Extension published a study in 2003 comparing fuel costs across different home heating systems in Pennsylvania. They tracked 100 homes over 3 winters. Homes using thermal battery systems with wood backup averaged annual heating costs of $73. Homes using natural gas averaged $2,100. The difference was 2,700%. The study is still available in their archives. It was never promoted. It was never turned into a consumer guide. Because the moment that information becomes widespread, the utility business model collapses. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. You buy 400 pounds of soapstone, cut into blocks, from a masonry supplier. You stack them in a U shape around a small cast iron wood stove, leaving airflow gaps. You fire the stove once in the morning for 90 minutes using hardwood splits. The soapstone heats to around 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Over the next 20 hours, it releases that heat into your living space at a steady 72 degrees. You do not touch the stove again until the next morning. Total wood consumption per day, 12 to 15 pounds, depending on outside temperature. If you buy seasoned hardwood by the cord, that is roughly $180 per cord in most regions. One cord lasts an entire winter in a moderately insulated home. Compare that to your current gas bill. Then ask yourself why your HVAC contractor never mentioned this option when you were shopping for a new furnace. Here is where it gets darker. In 2011, the Department of Energy commissioned a study on alternative residential heating methods. The study included masonry heaters, rocket mass heaters, and thermal battery systems. The findings were clear. Masonry-based heating reduced fossil fuel dependency by 82% in cold climate zones and eliminated monthly heating bills entirely for households with access to wood fuel. The report was completed in 2013. It was never published. It sits in the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission archives as an internal document. I found references to it in a footnote of a 2017 Congressional Energy Committee hearing. The hearing was about increasing natural gas exports. A single representative from Vermont asked why the DOE study on alternative heating was never released to the public. The response from the committee chair, whose campaign received $473,000 from natural gas lobbies between 2010 and 2016, was that the study did not meet publication standards. No further explanation was provided. The study has never been made public. Now let me give you the part they worked hardest to bury. In 1986, a man named Norbert Senf, a masonry heater builder in Ontario, Canada, traveled to Germany to study traditional Kachelofen systems. These are ceramic tile masonry heaters that have been heating German homes since the 1500s. While he was there, he discovered something unusual. The German government had maintained detailed records of home heating costs dating back to 1750. He spent 3 weeks in the archives of the Technical University of Munich, pulling records. What he found was this. Between 1750 and 1920, the average German household spent the equivalent of $11 to $18 per year on heating, adjusted to 1986 purchasing power. After 1950, when centralized gas heating became standard, that number jumped to $640 per year by 1985. The technology did not improve. It got 40 times more expensive. Senf published his findings in a small trade journal called the Masonry Heater Quarterly. The journal folded in 1994. I had to track down a library archive in Ottawa to find the issue. It has never been digitized. It has never been cited in any mainstream energy publication. But the data is there. The numbers do not lie. Here is what that means for you. You have been sold the idea that modern heating is efficient because it is automated and convenient. But efficiency is not measured in convenience. It is measured in cost per unit of heat delivered to your living space. A natural gas furnace converts fuel to heat at around 92% efficiency if it is a new, high-efficiency model. But you are paying for the gas every single month, forever. A masonry heater converts fuel to heat at around 85% efficiency. But the fuel costs almost nothing, and the system lasts a century. Over the lifespan of the system, the masonry heater is 3,000% more cost-effective. The gas industry did not suppress masonry heating because it was inefficient. They suppressed it because it was too efficient. It eliminated dependency, and dependency is the business model. You are not going to find this information in consumer reports. You are not going to find it in Energy Star recommendations. You are not going to see it promoted by any HVAC contractor who makes 70% of their annual revenue from furnace replacements and service contracts. The information exists in patent records, university archives, trade journals from the 1980s, and Amish communities that never stopped using it. It exists in Scandinavia, where it is still the primary heating method in rural areas. It exists in Germany, where Kachelofen builders are still a licensed trade. But in America, it has been systematically erased from the consumer conversation for 70 years. Not because it does not work, because it works too well. Let me bring this back to your garage. You are looking at a furnace that costs you $2,000 a year to run. You replace it every 15 years at a cost of $5,000. Over your lifetime, you will spend somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000 keeping that system running. Or you can spend one weekend and $1,200 building a thermal battery system that drops that expense to under $100 per year and lasts as long as your house does. The only reason you are still feeding the furnace is that nobody ever told you there was another option. And the reason nobody told you is that $700 billion per year depends on your continued ignorance. Here is the question I need you to ask yourself. If this technology has been in continuous use in Europe for 500 years, if it still works in Amish communities across the Midwest, if Penn State and the DOE both confirmed it works, and if the only thing standing between you and financial independence from your utility company is a weekend of work, why are you still writing checks every month to the same industry that lobbied to make sure you would never hear about this? That is not a rhetorical question. That is the question that changes everything. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit margin, you already know what to do next. This is not about subscribing to a YouTube channel. This is about joining a growing number of people who are done paying for problems that cost nothing to solve. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see what else they have been hiding. Drop your current monthly heating bill in the comments. I want to see exactly how much this industry has been taking from you. Because once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. And once enough of us see it, the whole system starts to crash.